Minister, the NGO An Taisce, which receives millions of euros in taxpayer funding annually, is known for serially objecting to various developments. Four Fine Gael TDs and two senators recently described An Taisce as, quote, a leading threat to the future of rural Ireland. And they said that this NGO is, quote, objecting to housing and forestry up and down the country. An Taisce even unsuccessfully challenged proposed developments in the High Court solely on climate change grounds. But last week you revealed that An Taisce had been consulted regarding your new planning and development bill.
So we've taken on board, I think it was about 156 recommendations or 196 recommendations that came from the JOC. The planning forum as well, which we had stakeholders there from the Irish Planning Institute to An Taisce to many others.
And you've said that environmental NGOs like this will have a, quote, special position within the legislation.
We've also ensured that the special position that environmental NGOs have is also retained within the bill. This piece of legislation will have the Environmental Court, which Minister McEntee is working at. It's very important that we have expert judges in that field as well who will be able to adjudicate on matters taken.
A bigger state, is one of the objectives I said in terms of budget, but also the establishment of a new court, the establishment of a new environmental court and the appointment of new High Court judges to be able to staff that is another example of where we do need a bigger state.
So is it not seriously concerning that a serial housing objector is being given a special position when it comes to construction in our country?
My two colleagues come in, but just briefly to answer that, the planning and development bill I brought forward is a radical reform of our planning system and a much needed upgrading of it, and making sure that we planning legislation that underpins both the housing strategic infrastructure delivery that we need as well. But it is important that we listen to all stakeholders, like An Taisce as well. And it wasn't that they were consulted separately. Minister O'Donnell here has chaired a number of the planning forums that were part of the process that allows the development sector, the environmental NGO sector, local authorities and indeed others to consult and input into the bill. What I want is an effective and efficient planning system. That's why we're resourcing it, and why furthermore there's within the planning bill that we got approval to publish last week, there are very strict timeframes around decisions. That's one of the biggest issues is around certainty, around consistency of approach as well. That hasn't been there, and that's something that this piece of legislation will bring forward. I might want to come in on that, please.
Our environmental NGOs they're a vital cog in the wheel of our planning system, of ensuring that we have good environmental standards in this country, and An Taisce are part of that. They're a prescribed body. Therefore, they have a statutory role and an important role to play. I'll give the example of the Historic and Archaeological Heritage Bill, which I'll be in the channel with tomorrow. And they've played a really fantastic role in ensuring the robustness of that piece of legislation. So again, I would say quite categorically that our NGOs are vital to the work that we do in ensuring that there's good environmental stewardship in this country, good robust planning, and that we meet all of our environmental requirements.
But what would you think of the fact that the government is obviously setting up this environmental court, and there's been warnings in Europe with the European People's Party, for example, that similar environmental cases from activist groups can seriously stymie and jam up the works of various construction projects?
Division in the High Court, it was actually a commitment in the programme for government. It's in housing for all. It's no surprise to people, and I think it makes sense that you have judges that are experts in that area to be able to streamline any observations, not just objections, that are brought to the court through the judicial review process. I think it'll actually make the system better, to be honest. We'll have additional resources within that division as well of the courts. People need to have their say too. Fundamental to the changes that we're bringing forward in planning is to have a better plan-led approach, less surprises. That's why we're bringing forward 10-year development plans, so that residents groups or whoever it may be, environmental NGOs, that are clear what's actually planned for any particular site within a development plan. This is the biggest overhaul of planning legislation since the year 2000, arguably since 63, and it'll take a while to bed down, but we look forward to getting that into the Dáil and Shannon. We've made some changes so far, and we'll be open to further amendment as it moves through, but it's a very significant piece of work, and I think it's a once-in-a-generation piece of legislation. Jay.